That was such a good presentation, sweetie. It's so good to see that a woman can be smart, can have brains. And I was just like, I didn't know.
That's very, yeah,
Didn't know
that's
what
too
to say.
bad.
So I think from my perspective, the ambition can be positive. It can be negative, depending on. I think probably in any work dynamic.
Welcome to the Three Women On podcast, your go-to for real talk on women's health, careers, family, and everything in between. Okay, so this week's topic, I almost wore something with shoulder pads because nothing screams this word more than shoulder pads in the 80s.
Uh-oh.
Ambition.
Ambition. Get those shoulder pads out.
Okay, so ambition, when you think about it, positive or negative?
Oh, positive, for sure. I think it can get in unhealthy ways. You can try to achieve ambition, but ambition is, you're reaching for a goal, and it usually requires hard work and dedication, and those are all great things. So if you have a healthy pursuit of something, I think that's great.
I think keyword is the healthy pursuit.
Yep, you're right.
That's where the lines can get blurred, I think.
Absolutely.
I know. I see it in myself.
Yep.
I see it in my career. I see it in colleagues. I see it in patients that I work with.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, and I was going to say, but sometimes, and this is maybe me being a female and having done time in corporate America, it's not always viewed as positive for females.
I would agree with that. Success and likability are always positively correlated with men.
Success and likability.
But success and likability are not positively correlated for women in the workplace. That's my experience. Like success, likability, men, good. Success, likability, if women are successful, it's not always positively correlated. So I think women have additional obstacles in the workplace.
Absolutely. And see, my rules, my experience is a little bit different. It's the same but different. You have both been in a corporate setting. I've never worked in the corporate world, right? So my viewpoint is different. I've been in private practice 33 years. I've lectured all across the globe, which is really interesting because from that perspective, when I started lecturing, I don't even know if I should dare say this, but I was at one particular event, and it took me quite aback, and I never thought about it. I would just get up there, lecture, and so forth. And it's happened to me several times since, where a male colleague, generally they are the older generation, but one of them came up to me and said, "That was such a good presentation, sweetie. It's so good to see that a woman can be smart, can have brains." And I was just like, I didn't know.
That's very,
didn't
that's
know what
too
to say.
bad.
So I think from my perspective, the ambition can be positive. It can be negative, depending on, I think probably in any work dynamic.
Yeah, innately it's a good thing, but when you throw it into a world of people, different genders, different politics, it can feel messy and ugly sometimes. And I mean, dog eat dog world, right? Like one of the things I noticed with ambition in my work setting is oftentimes, the workers that were always there, first one in, last one out, didn't take vacations, didn't take time off. That was looked as a positive. And so they were looked at as, ambitious and successful and the role model. And, I think that's another thing in the corporate world that might be, it is unhealthy because that's just not sustainable. And that's just not healthy for anybody to just give your entire life to
Well, and I
something.
actually find myself better in my job and my role when I have some more time off. I can tend to be a little bit more creative when I have unplugged. whether that's riding a horse through the mountains or golfing or whatever it is. Like, I need that little bit of unplugged time.
Yeah.
And I think it probably depends what country you're in as well. When you said people, getting there first thing in the morning, staying late, in a lot of the countries, that is not the typical scenario you see in a work environment. So I think maybe looking at maybe the dynamics here, in our country, that have we gone too far in trying to define quote unquote success?
That's a great point. Like, what is success? Like, I feel like it's achieving something that you want, but I think people define it so vastly different.
Absolutely. And I think that leads us back to what is the difference between, ambition and self-worth or self-sustainability. Excuse me. Ambition, it's a desire, it's a drive, it's to be successful, it's to be recognized, it's to be, the accolades versus self-worth, self-compassion, proving one to yourself. That's where I think for women in particular can get a little bit difficult, because that is self-compassion, it's self-love. So is your success defined solely by these external accolades, or can we pivot at some point in our careers and make that success be in your internal self-love?
I had an interesting lunch with a friend of mine this past week, and he, we never worked together, but we would volunteer on various projects in our community. And it was funny. And he said, after 23 years of being married, I think I finally figured out my wife. And I was like, wait, what? And it was so comical, but he said, Gina, I'm such a driver. Like, I'm always like, oh, let's do Tony Robbins, or let's do this, let's do that. He said, it never dawned on me for 1 minute that my wife was really happy doing what she does.
Yeah, that was her success.
And that was her success. And she didn't have that. She has drive in other things, but not the same type of ambition and drive he has for his career. And he was like, I finally just realized that, like, the way that I drive, the way that my ambition and I push, that's not her. And he goes, and it just finally dawned on me, like, she's really happy on the trajectory that she's on.
Yep.
And that was her. Yeah, it was her success. That's what she's loving. And I thought that was so interesting.
And maybe that's a takeaway here is, like, just appreciate and respect other people's definition of a success. Like, if they're really, like, if, this is what they consider successful, that will make their life meaningful and have purpose to them, who are we to judge, if they're successful or ambitious? They are in their own right. It's just a different definition of what that means. And that's okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, in the medical industry, you'll see a lot, there's a lot of practice management groups and so forth. Doctors tend not to be the best business people sometimes. So you have these groups and so forth, and in many fields, and not just in the chiropractic world or physical therapy world or dentistry, it just all fields. And they oftentimes are led by men up until about the last decade. In fact, going back to speaking on the stages, I was one of the first females. There weren't a lot of females speaking on global stages. And that became more of a movement in the Me Too movement, But a lot of those traditional practice management folks were led by men. And it is, and good or bad, whatever, it's a lot of focused on what is your income, how many patients do you see a day, it's driven like that. And my mantra has always been, if you see one person a day in practice, and that is, you have offered them a change in life, a change in health, and that is success for you, that is beautiful. And
exactly.
You make your practice, your career, what is right for you. And I think that's one of the biggest messages hopefully we as collective can put out there.
I had one CEO that actually saw it that way.
Wow.
A male CEO.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, and it kind of goes back to what you're saying on, like, how it was more data driven with these guys that you were working with. He had made a comment. He said, so I'll premise this. I worked in a lot of, with a lot of affiliates and distributors. And so we had a huge sales field.
Yeah.
On a global level. And he said, there's something about when women get into leadership and they start reaching these really, these high sales goals and they start reaching them, all of a sudden they're no longer with their peers as females, but we put them in with these quote unquote, these male leaders. And I'm using air quotes when I say this. And then something changes. They no longer talk around the table. And their production changes because they start listening to these guys and they forget what got them there in the first place.
Huh.
Wow.
Have you ever heard that, Janae?
No.
I know, but it's so
But it's
true.
Yeah, it is. I can see that.
So that's in human nature for them to try to fit in maybe at this higher level. Do you think that they felt they needed to change who their expressive behavior, who they are,
Or
that's
maybe
such an interesting social dynamic.
It is a very
and it was so
interesting
interesting
dynamic.
for a male CEO to say this.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was like, how do we keep them like doing what they're doing, what they love and who they are?
So that kind of tells me, just a little snarky, is when you say for a male CEO to see that. So what I'm thinking is then they do see the value of females in the workforce driven. They just maybe don't recognize it until they recognize it. That's amazing.
It would be interesting to look into that more, because I also feel like as females get higher in the leadership levels, the pressure's more on women. Women have way more pressure. And I think it's because, wrong or right, I mean, it's wrong, but, people are still feeling this way now. Like, they're expected to fail. And so the pressure for women as they're getting up there, like, the past logic, very antiquated logic, has said women can't do this, right? But as they go and they're proving themselves, it does get higher or harder or more stressful, I should say, on them to prove themselves. I don't feel like men have that added burden to prove themselves, even though they've proven themselves. Females have proven themselves all the way up here. It just gets harder and harder because to some level, men may be expecting them to fail, and so the pressure of, I can't fail because they think I'm going to fail, or I can't not do this because they think I can't do this. I think it's kind of innate in females, and so it would be very sad if that's why the pressure is so great on the women that they don't feel comfortable because they're afraid to fail.
They had that
at
internal
that table,
pressure. Absolutely.
Or I don't know. What you said was just fascinating. I don't know what's driving that.
Well, I think it goes back to Monica. I think they're trying to fit in. They're trying to say, okay, so this is what it means to be at this level.
This
Yeah.
is what it looks like,
This is
and
what it
this
looks
is how I have
like.
to behave.
Yeah.
And
And maybe I need to be a little more standoffish, and maybe I need, but that's not what got them there.
That is not what got
No,
them there.
because anything, any product, life is, we have the gift of emotion, of giving something that's unique to whatever the product or industry might be. Mm-hmm. I think we do as women. And we have the ability to nurture, not just from a parental standpoint, but we have the ability to nurture a company, a product, whatever, and those people that are surrounded in that company. So I think we have the ability to nurture men and women. And so that's a huge thing as you go up. Now, again, I've never been in that top echelons of the corporate world, but I'm thinking that when you get to that level, maybe that nurturing emotional aspect has to be detached a little bit because fear of failing, maybe. Yeah. That internal, that internal. They expect me to be here. I have to act like them to get to that next step.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also you don't want to look weak. If you're too nurturing, too empathetic,
Yeah.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
But back to your point, it may not be your authentic self, and that's not what got you there,
Right.
and so
Yeah, your authentic drive, your authentic self got you to that point.
Yeah.
So why would somebody logically think that it stops at that level?
yeah. And I think it just, and it's hard. It is, as a female, we've both been there in those higher leadership positions. It is hard. There are more obstacles for females in the corporate world, and we can overcome them. We can do it, but I still think don't let your courage go away. Like, stay strong. I think you even at that highest level, don't be fearful. I think you still have to have your managerial courage to do the right thing, do what is what you think is the best, and so just don't let fear win, I guess, in those levels. And we as females should support other females in their roles at those levels.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that. What are some good ways? I mean, there's going to be folks listening today, or folks even like within our own careers still.
Yeah.
What can we do to help when we see these females that either are cowing down and not talking? I remember I had a review by someone I still have as a mentor, and I saved this review, and he said, "I need you to talk more. There's a reason you have at the seat at the table. It's like you don't open your mouth as soon as you get around this table." It was like me and one other female, and then like 12 men.
Yeah.
So how do we encourage women
To not lose their voice.
to not lose their voice?
I think taking every opportunity to talk about successes of your fellow female colleagues is huge. And then also, I would say, give them an example. Behave how you want other females around you to behave. Show them the way.
And I think those that are up there, if we have a chance to say, just even a little note or something, hey, I love your voice, meaning
Oh yeah.
you have a voice. Keep your voice, keep your voice at the table.
Yep.
And encourage that. Give them that little power, that little courage to, this might sound really cheesy. It just came to mind. I'm just going to throw it out there. In my office, I have this little dish, and I have little glass hearts that I let patients take. And I say, these are your unworry stones. And the adults love them too, right?
Yes.
And they can pick whatever color and stuff. And a lot of women pick them, and I say, just stick it in your pocket. And when you're doubting yourself, when you're low, it's your unworry stone. Give them an unworry stone, whether it is a physical stone or a little note or a little text or something like, give them that power, especially if they're going into a big meeting or they have a big project, or just give them that little
Boost of
extra
confidence that it can go so far. It can be
And
really
I love
impactful.
the idea of writing a note.
It is so good.
Telling your female colleagues or your friend, I see you. I know what you're doing. I see you juggling the kids going to soccer practice and your job and picking up the dry cleaning and all the things that we have going on in a day.
Yeah. And just, I see you, you're loved. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a huge thing, but just, I'm not in the corporate world, but the little things that I think I would appreciate,
Absolutely. It translates across the board. Things, females, it's that emotion. It's that validation that I think we crave. And so just knowing that someone sees you, appreciates you, sees your worth, like it boosts all of us.
Yeah.
Janae, is there anything in your career that stood out of somebody that really, really helped you as you were going up your career, and they were helping you to drive that ambition and really help you honing that in?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So I'm hesitant because I'm trying to think of a good female leader that has helped me.
Because sometimes
And
it's men.
I don't
Yes.
think I have one. I do. I mean, they're amazing. I've had some amazing male bosses as well. And I think that's part of the solution in creating a great work environment for all is just having, have all bosses to create a space of, like where employees feel safe. Obviously demand a respectful space. Like you can't, there's ways to do things in a professional and respectful way, but also a space that you can share your voice without fear and, have the opportunities to grow. That's the other thing is I've been given a lot of great opportunities. People put their trust in me. But yeah, what was the question? I don't think I answered it.
No, but it was about,
I was trying so hard to find a female.
Did you have, no, but I can honestly, as soon as you said that, I don't think I had a female. And I don't think that that's uncommon because if you look at the generation before us, these women would now be in their 60s, 70s, 80s. They weren't in corporate America.
In those positions, probably. Or in corporate America, period.
So really, we've heavily relied on the current men in corporate America, if you're assuming that you're in corporate, to help really drive us and blossom us and helping us to develop our careers.
And you know what? You pick good places to work.
Amen.
You work for people you respect, you trust, and that may mean that you have to go different places to find that. But that is one thing that I kind of was high on my list, is just demanding a place of that I felt respected. And so I think that's important, finding good bosses and good work settings.
So Monica, as we're getting ready to close, what things can we do to help this next generation? Okay, so Janae and I are both talking. Our mentors, like the folks that helped us drive our careers, men, which thank you. And I know this mentor is listening to this right now, and I know he knows who he is. But Monica, what can we do for this next generation?
Well, I find that interesting because in my career, again, this is what's so fun is we're on all these different dynamics. I had a couple women that really
so nice.
Yeah. That were huge in, I guess, was like giving me my break, especially on the lecturing stage. So it's kind of different in that dynamic. And one in particular is a very well-known neuroscientist who worked her way up, kicking and screaming and talking about a male-dominated world.
She was the trailblazer.
She was a trailblazer. So it's interesting to hear that different dynamic. I think one of the things, and again, I haven't been in the corporate office setting, is to have enough self-awareness and enough self-confidence that you're okay with another female climbing the ladder, so to speak. Let them stand on our shoulders.
And actually happy for them.
And happy for them. Let them stand on our shoulders. And okay if they pass us. Exactly.
And be okay with that.
Yeah. So maybe, I just picture this ladder of people standing on each other's shoulders, lifting them up. And it's you are so okay and secure in your skin that you can do that for others.
Perfect. What do you think that we could have done differently, maybe? Or what would you do now?
I don't know if I'd do anything differently. I feel like I was able to give a lot of my really talented female workers the visibility, the accolades. I think it's so important to support our fellow female colleagues, the good ones, like especially the good ones, because I've said this over and over. It is more challenging, and especially in, the corporate world. And so just really having each other's back, no jealousy, no, battling. It's just a support system in the corporate world. So.
And so we're eager to know what people are thinking that are listening to this. So if you heard this podcast, if you watched us, drop in the comments what you think. What could we do as in this next generation to help these gals coming up so they can be natural drivers if that's what they choose to be? Because we talked about success looks different for everyone. Yeah. But to really help them in their careers as they embark, because it's different now. Things are changing. So it's very exciting. So again, drop a comment. We'd love to hear what you're thinking. And until next time.